And my mom, like brick from the middle, goes, system settings. Because I accidentally pulled a Gayle and didn't actually turn the settings on for our microphone. So here we are. We're back. We're back.
Hi, Daff.
Hi, Mom.
Thanks for all of that.
I love Brick. He's my favorite character.
Me too. And Sue, actually.
I love all of them. I love Axel also. I just love all of them. That's a great show. We haven't watched that show in a very long time.
Not.
I should watch that show.
Yep.
It's a good one. Okay. Hi.
And we were gone for 2 weeks because we both had the stomach flu consecutively, not concurrently.
Yeah, I got it. And then you had it.
Yes. Which prevented recording. So here we are and no one cares.
And it was like the worst migraine situation in the world too. Beforehand, before you got sick, you got a migraine and you couldn't see out of your left eye because that's what happens to me whenever I get a migraine. And then I was puking for like 24 hours straight and that was horrible. And then you were puking for like 48 hours. And I don't know why you have to top me and puke for way longer than I did.
Oh, yeah, that was the goal.
She's like, you puked for 24. I puked for 48.
It was awesome. I was totally trying to be a topper.
Okay. You ready for my disturbing fact?
So ready. Besides puking.
Have you ever heard of the mole people?
The mole?
Mole.
Okay, because I thought you said Mo. The Mo people. Have you ever heard of Mo people? Yes.
You have heard of the mole people?
Yeah, but I don't have any idea what it is. I just have heard that. Mole people.
You don't really know what it is.
No, but I've heard people say, have you heard of the mole people? And I go, yeah.
Okay.
We're going to annoy the shit out of everybody.
Stab at it?
No. Do they live underground and have blind eyes and can't see?
They're not blind to unless they are. I don't know. But yes, they live underground, under major cities. Like in the Las Vegas, the mole people of Las Vegas, there's like 1,000 of them that live underneath the casinos and underneath the hotels and all that. There's like 5 miles or something like that of underground of living? Unutilized sewer systems, like undiscovered sewer systems. And so these people live under there, you know, to avoid the cold winters, hot summers, and they're obviously homeless. And the city like doesn't kick them out because they just like mind their own business. And they're also like not stealing things either. Like they're just kind of staying down there, minding their business, coming up when they need something.
Just existing.
Yeah. But it's kind of crazy because there's like a king and they have their own set of rules. And apparently, if you go deep enough into the areas, they have their own languages. And this isn't like just in Vegas. The one that I specifically heard about was in Vegas, but they're in like New York. I'm sure they're in Denver. They're in other places.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of like the lizard people at the airport in Denver.
Yeah.
All the freaking conspiracy theories around DIA.
Yeah.
Crazy. Or I guess it's now DEN. It's not DIA anymore.
Right. Den.
Yeah, that's the fact.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, thanks. Now I'm like, sorry, digesting and it's creepy.
Digesting the mole people?
Yeah.
That's kind of weird. Well, I think you shouldn't do that.
Not literally.
Yeah, so they, like, there's a video of this guy. They're, like, interviewing this guy, and he's got, like, his own bedroom and, like, a little kitchen area, which it's more like a shitchen. But a kitchen shitter.
Yes. We're familiar with the shit.
Obviously, there's safety concerns, though, when you're going to live in the sewers because you're prone to flooding.
Oh. But Vegas is at least desert, so perhaps not so much. But in other areas.
Yeah, here, though, too. I mean,
yeah,
we're a high plains desert, and we've flooded here many a times.
Yes, I suppose.
Yeah, it's just kind of crazy.
It's very crazy.
Some tunnels, though, have been sealed off, so people can't get in there anymore.
Well, that's kind of rude.
Some cities.
Especially if people aren't hurting anybody and just existing.
Yeah, there was a place called the Freedom Tunnel, and it was bulldozed and closed off. And so, like, it displaced a shit ton of people, you know? It was almost like a shanty town that was underground.
Where was that?
I don't know.
Because I know Seattle has that, too. Because Seattle has a lot of areas where, like, because obviously it's old, like every other place is old, but they have places where the sidewalks have, like, glass tiles, but they're small.
It was in Manhattan.
And so it lets the light in.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy.
It's really crazy. Yeah. But I guess, you know, if they're not If they're utilizing unutilized space, that's,
Yeah, because
giving themselves some shelter against elements and basic human rights.
yeah, exactly.
It's just really interesting. It's just disturbing to me because rats live in sewers.
Ugh.
And I couldn't.
Yeah. And flies and
I think you would get like henta, whatever a virus. That rats and mice carry?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And bubonic plague.
Oof. That would be bad.
Yeah. I feel like that could happen.
Probably. You're probably not wrong.
I haven't looked into the science of it, but I just feel like it could.
You're like, I'm just making it up. But it could be true.
It's not a fact, but it could happen, I feel.
Okay. Fun facts by Daphne.
Okay, what do you got for me today? Well, okay, let me preface what do you have for me today by you're like, oh my God, this is going to be a killer case. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so excited. And you're like, well, maybe not. And I'm like, well, that's not great ego. And then you were like, yeah, well, it's because people, when we were like, oh my God, this is going to be so good, they're like, oh my God, that's your worst one yet. Like, I really thought Lloyd Avery was going to be a smash fucking hit. Yeah. People still, for whatever reason, like us talking about monsters in the middle of the fucking Nevada desert. Here we go. We just talked about, let's just do a whole episode on the mole people. What do you got? Let's keep going.
I don't have anything. Sorry. And
they're
I worked
in
on this really hard, so we're going to do what I did.
They're in the Nevada concrete jungle instead.
There you go. I was going to do conspiracy theory just because obviously they hit. But
yeah, they hit a little different.
Yeah, but I did this one instead because I've been wanting to do it. And then it was really a lot more involved than I thought it was going to be, as always. And so that's why I was like, oh, this is awesome. But then who knows, maybe the 4 people that listen to us will think it's awesome, but maybe they won't. And it's long. But I didn't want to make it a 2-parter because we also fucking know how that goes.
Yeah,
people
everyone
listen
hates
to the
us.
first part and don't listen to the second part. So there's no resolution for all the people that don't listen to the second part, which to me means they didn't really care about the first part. So it's long and yeah, hopefully people like it and enjoy it. And if that's the way you want to use the words that
like and enjoy.
Yeah, because it's really fucked up.
Okay, well, I'm scared.
Okay.
Proceed.
All right. So I'm doing the Mississippi civil rights murders, which is about the
civil rights or silver rights?
Civil rights. Civil rights.
Sounded like you said silver.
Sorry. It could have maybe. The Mississippi civil rights murders.
Okay.
But
MISSI, SSI, PPI.
That was extra S's. But don't,
no,
you
it
can't.
Isn't.
You said MISSISSISS.
No, I didn't.
I feel like that's what I heard. Any hoodles. Okay. So the Mississippi civil rights murders is the story about 3 civil rights workers that were killed in Mississippi, obviously. But first, how I do things, it's either jump off or I give the history. So we're going to go history.
Okay, we're going history, not jumping.
History. So in 1870, the 15th Amendment of the Constitution was passed by Congress. This amendment stated that voting rights could not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state on account of, so like the United States as a whole or any individual state, right? On account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. So that means if you were a slave, you still could vote,
So that's
right?
giving voting rights to all men.
Yes. Exactly.
No matter who they are, a man that's a legal citizen.
A man that's well, that's not even in there because that wasn't a thing at that time either. But anyway,
Okay.
So it's basically based on race and servitude. So if you're black or you're a slave, right? Well, the 15th Amendment banned voting rights discrimination on the basis of race. So it banned like race states being able to say, no, you can't vote because you're black, right?
Okay.
Because you're Asian or you're whatever, right? But it did leave the doors open for states to determine specific qualifications for voters, which should fucking be a thing now. I'm just saying that state legislatures used qualifications such as literacy tests, poll taxes, and other discriminatory practices to discourage a majority of black voters for decades.
That's fucked up.
It's fucked up. But
It gets worse.
Yeah, it
It's
gets much worse
today.
As a result, white-dominated state legislatures reestablished what was known as the Black Codes from the 1870s, right? They had these Black Codes in the form of the so-called Jim Crow laws, which was a system of segregation that would remain in place for nearly a century after the 15th Amendment passed. So the term Jim Crow laws comes from the era of blackface. Do you know what blackface is?
I do. It's fucked up. And
Yes,
there's like
it's fucked up.
it started as like a radio show, and then they were TV shows.
Well, it's where it actually started, not radio either, but because it's visual, but it's when white actors who were touring in vaudeville acts, which comedy, dressed in blackface to mock black culture, and they exaggerated harmful, bigoted stereotypes for entertainment. Just straight up bullshit. Yes. Jim Crow was a character.
If you're going to cast a black person, let it be a black person.
Yeah. Jim Crow was a character, so he was an actual character that became extremely popular during these performances that led to his name being associated with the laws that enforced apartheid, American apartheid, right?
I thought there was some blackface like radio talk show.
Yeah, but I think it's related to the vaudeville because it's visual. Okay. I mean, yes, they could do blackface on the radio.
Right. I mean, obviously no one's going to see it, but it was two people like being bigoted assholes. Being bigoted assholes. There you go. So Jim Crow was this character who was extremely popular, and that led to his name being associated with the laws. I already said that, so I'm repeating myself. Sorry, I'll cut that. No, that's okay. That enforced American apartheid, right? And apartheid is when we just try to keep people separated, like segregation, people like, you're like this, so you can't do what I do over here. Okay. It's just keeping people down, keeping people separated. Oppressed. Yes. Good verbiage. So these laws were meant to deny free citizens their basic rights and opportunities simply based on their skin color. At the state and local levels, Jim Crow laws and customs dictated everything from how and in what capacities formerly enslaved people could work, where they could live, how they could travel, how much they could be paid, under which conditions they could vote, and daily interactions as common as handshaking and introductions. Failure to abide by some, such as the social rule that a black man was never to touch a white woman, even for a simple handshake, could lead to death from something gruesome such as lynching, which was the most violent form of Jim Crow. Okay. But it was legal, which is so fucked up. It is fucked up. It's all fucked up. Okay, my thought is that Jim Crow was just a made-up character, and they're naming shit after a made-up character just because of association.
Yes.
That's so fucked up.
Yes.
That's my thought.
Okay. I'm like, it's not a thought, it's a fact.
But well, it's just fucked up. My thought is that it's all fucked up.
It is all fucked up. So by the 1880s, the largely rural enforcement of these laws and customs, so rural, not big city, led to the surge of formerly...
Wait, so was it in big cities too?
Eventually, but...
The start of it is just in small towns.
It's in rural communities.
Rural America.
So the enforcement of the laws and customs led to a surge of formerly enslaved people seeking solace in larger cities. With the rising population of blacks, city-dwelling whites began to assert their white supremacy. So black people are moving into the cities, and the white people are like, nope, fuck you. We're still going to do this Jim Crow thing, right? Which led to the spread of...
Shouldn't be here. You have stayed in your city.
Yeah, in your rural area. So that led to the spread of Jim Crow laws out of the rural South and across the entire region, and across the entire southern region. So public buildings were segregated, parks were declared off limits, and the rise of the, quote, colored only drinking fountains, restrooms, building entrances, elevators, cemeteries, amusement parks, and cashier windows effectively created like two Souths. There was a black South and a white South.
That's so fucked up.
It's so fucked up, and it's not that far back.
Well,
it's frightening.
That's what America is.
Yeah, frightening.
Yeah, America is frightening, and America is not kind.
So black and white Americans lived entirely separate worlds within the same within the same world, right? So the rights and opportunities afforded to all Americans distributed disproportionately on the white side of the dividing line is basically what it boils down
because
to.
white supremacists want to have their cake and eat it too.
So white supremacy was maintained even as slavery had ended, while Jim Crow laws were struck down by the federal government not until the 1960s. Daphne raised eyebrows. Yep.
Sorry, I know you can't hear me. I'm just like 1960s was when they decided to abolish the Jim Crow laws.
1960s.
What was the start year?
It was in the 1870s, 1880s.
Jeez.
Yeah. So
that's too long.
It's so long.
That's too long to realize that we all bleed red. Unless you're one of the rare 1 out of 250,000 people or something like that. 250 million people. Not 250,000 that have gold blood.
Ooh, I want that.
I know, wouldn't that be neat?
Anyway, that'd be neat.
But it's extremely rare.
Extremely. Oh, sorry. I'm bricking it.
You're bricking it.
The federal government said no more Jim Crow laws in the 1960s, but it didn't mean that the fight to remain white supremacy, the fight to maintain white supremacy and
the fight to keep the white rights.
Yes, and maintain white power for whites ended. Like, they're like, well, fuck you, federal government. We don't care. Like, we're still going to do our thing, right? So the American Civil Rights Movement started in the mid-1950s, and the big pushes or catalysts, if you will, were the U.S. Supreme Court making segregation illegal in public schools in the case of Brown versus the Board of Education. And then in December of 1955 with Rosa Parks, she was an NAACP activist. So
I love Rosa Parks.
National Association for the Advancement of Colored People is what the NAACP stands for. But she was an activist and she refused to give up her seat on a public bus to a white man. So that caused a huge, big fucking problem. Okay, so fast forward to the summer of 1964, which was promoted as, quote, the Freedom Summer. The Congress of Federated Organizations, known as the COFO, which was one of the most active civil rights groups in Mississippi. The group had planned a concentrated effort to register African Americans to vote. And I'm using the term African American because it applies to that time, where now I think the term Black is more preferred and or accepted, because I think so. Not all Black people are from Africa. And so that's why we don't like the term. But for this story, that is the verbiage of the time. Okay, so that's what we're going with.
Absolutely.
We're going with a verbiage of the time. So Michael Schwerner, who was known as Mickey, he was 24 years old. He originally wanted to be a veterinarian and attended Michigan State University. And then he switched gears and he transferred to Cornell University and became a rural sociology major. And in the early 1960s, Mickey started working with a group called the Congress of Racial Equality, known as CORE. And it was a civil.
You cannot words.
I can't. It was a civil rights group for African Americans. Mickey and his wife, Rita, and Mickey is white. He's Jewish, last name Schwerner.
Right.
So he's from New York. I don't know if I said that, but he's from New York. So Mickey and his wife, Rita, had become established civil rights organizers and were assigned to Meridian, Mississippi. The Schwerners were the first whites to be permanently assigned outside Jackson, Mississippi, which was the state capital. So Jackson's like a little more progressive than this little rural community that they went to called Meridian.
Okay.
So the Schwerners teamed up with James Chaney. He was 21 years old. He was an African American and a COFO volunteer who was from Meridian, Mississippi. Along with Schwerner's wife, Rita, they established a community center and organizing headquarters in Meridian with the intention of holding voter education classes and drives to register African Americans to vote in Mississippi.
They should still do that today.
Many college students and young adults were recruited from local communities in northern and western states to work on this project. Civil rights movement. Civil rights movement, huge at this point in the country.
They should still be educating people on how to vote today.
That's why I said the literacy thing, maybe. But anyway, I can't talk, so I wouldn't be allowed to vote, I guess. But
being able to pronounce things means you don't have a brain, though.
James,
there's absolutely an argument to be made for people with speech impediments, which you don't have. But just saying.
Right. James Chaney was a bright student who attended Catholic school and was a member of a Catholic church. At the age of 15, he and some of his classmates started wearing paper badges with NAACP on them to make their support known. But because of that, they were suspended for a week from their segregated high school because the principal feared the reaction of the all-white school board. So the principal's scared that the school board's going to catch wind of it.
And the principal's presumably black since we're segregated, right?
No, the principal was white.
Oh.
So, because it's a segregated high school. But
okay, well, I don't know if it's because it's segregated, if there's like two separate bodies in one place.
I think it's like maybe you're right. I guess you're probably right. I don't know.
I just think if it's segregated, it'd be
that
like
it's all black. That makes sense.
Black, or like
half the school, the one half the white people go
right. There's half is for the white, the other half is for the black people.
Well, that's kind of what I was thinking.
You would have separate, but then you would have separate powers,
governing bodies of the school.
Exactly.
So in 1962,
because that wouldn't be very fair to have an all black school with all white teachers and all white principals, all white authority.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I didn't look that up.
I'm just saying. It doesn't make sense otherwise, but it actually totally does make sense otherwise.
That's what I'm thinking. But anyway, so in 1962, he participated in a freedom ride from Tennessee to Mississippi and other nonviolent demonstrations. In 1963, he started volunteering and joined CORE. He organized voter education classes, introduced CORE workers to local church leaders, and helped CORE workers get around the counties because, as I said, most of them were from the northern and western states, right? In 1964, he met with the leaders of local Baptist churches to gain support and to let Mickey come and address church members. And also he was hoping to have the churches allow them to use them for voter education and voter registration, right? The church spaces. So everybody doesn't have to come to this one center that they've organized in Meridian. They're like, we want to be able to go to like your church and your church and your church.
Right.
So that your parishioners, and then your parishioners can just come to church and get all this information. They don't have to go to this one place in Meridian, right? Because they're kind of working in two counties, they are working in two counties.
Right.
They're working in Lauderdale County and Neshoba. I'll get there. I have to see it in order to say it.
Gotcha.
But anyway, so they're in these two counties, right, that they're working.
You have the phonetics next to it.
No, I don't. But when I see it, I can say it. And on a side note, Freedom Riders were groups of civil rights activists who rode, because I said he participated in Freedom Ride. So I just wanted you to understand what a Freedom Ride is. So Freedom Riders were groups of civil rights activists who rode interstate buses in the segregated southern states to challenge the U.S. Supreme Court for the non-enforcement of segregated buses. Because remember, the Supreme Court and the United States government has said no segregation. Everybody should be together. And the South is still like, nope.
Not equal rights, I guess, but not Jim Crow laws.
Right.
Yes.
And so, but the South is still like, no, like you can't be on our bus. And like, you know what I mean? Like this bus is for blacks. This bus is for whites. So anyway, so the Freedom Riders were making a statement by riding the buses, and there were whites and there were blacks, and like they were all mixing,
right, commingling.
And they were doing it on purpose in order to, as I said, make a statement because the Supreme Court had ruled segregated buses to be unconstitutional, but the southern states ignored the rulings and the federal government did nothing to enforce the rulings. So in spite of Supreme Court's decision, the South still adhered to Jim Crow travel laws. And Freedom Riders were often arrested for trespassing, unlawful assembly, and other alleged offenses. And they often let white mobs attack the riders without doing anything prior to then arresting them.
Wow.
It's fucked up. So Andrew Goodman, who is the third. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just gonna say I can't imagine living in this world, and I really fear that we are headed back in this direction. And I'm not trying to get political at all. I see you. She's telling me, she's trying to cut my head off. I'm like, shh. No, but I just fear that we are.
Yeah.
And it's sad.
It's
just really sad.
It's ignorance is what it is.
Yeah, and not blissful ignorance.
No.
It's fucked up shit.
Yeah, it's just ignorant.
No, I just am thinking about everything, and I'm just like...
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's not that long ago.
It just rings the...
It's not even 100 years ago.
It just, like, rings true to a lot of shit that's taking place today.
Well, and it's always
like
been...
with the prisons in El Salvador. Who's going there? I'm just saying, who's going there? Marginalized communities.
Right. But, yeah.
It's not a political thing. That is fact.
I'm aware that it's fact, but I think let's stick to the story.
Okay.
Stick to the script.
I'm just
Lucy.
saying we don't have a script.
I know. It was a joke. Your name is also not Lucy.
But I love Lucy.
Ah, who doesn't? Lucy, you got some splaining to do.
Lucy, you got some splaining to do.
All right. Ready?
Sorry. Yeah.
That's
no,
okay.
I'm just thinking about the parallels of life in this. It's just sad.
It's sad. This is sad. This is very sad.
Well, you want me to chime in? This is what I'm saying when I chime in.
No,
this
it's
is sad.
fine. I appreciate the chiming. I just don't want it to.
It makes me think of that Beyonce song, "Freedom, freedom, running down on me. Freedom, I can be." You know what I'm talking about? I don't even know if that's the right
I don't
words.
love Beyonce. I just don't love Beyonce. Anyway.
It's just what makes me think of that.
Back to
You have to listen to it.
Andrew Goodman was from New York, and he came from a family who was involved in intellectual and socially progressive activism. His mother was a lifelong labor activist.
What did you say his name was?
Andrew Goodman.
Okay.
And at the age of 14, Andrew traveled to Washington, D.C. to participate in the 1958 Youth March, for
Not your
integrated
friends
schools.
tonight.
In 1959, Andrew and his friend, one of his friends, went to West Virginia to live in a coal mining town to advocate to the governor.
Oh my God. I thought you were going to say a cult town.
No, a coal mining town.
I was like, damn, we're going there this episode too?
Well, basically. But they went to this coal mining town to advocate to the governor about poor working conditions. And at 17, he traveled to Western Europe to understand the impact of large-scale agribusiness on small farmers. Andrew also participated in the 1960 protest at a New York Woolworths. Do you know what Woolworths is? It was a store. It was like Walgreens.
Are they still around?
No, they're not. But they were around till not that recently, or not in the too distant
when you lived
past.
in the South, they were there?
No, they were all over. There was Woolworths here. They
Oh.
just went bankrupt like, 20-ish years ago or so, I would say. So anyway, he was at this protest at a New York Woolworths as part of the sit-in movement. You know what the sit-in movement is? When people would just sit and protest and they just wouldn't move.
Yeah.
Okay, so a sit-in protesting segregationist policies of the Five and Dime store. So it was, again, that whole blacks have to go in through the back door, can't use the bathroom, all this kind of stuff. So in the spring of 1964, his junior year in college, and he was like a drama major. So he wasn't even into, he was active in civil rights and social issues.
Right.
But
that wasn't really an activist.
No, he was an activist, but it wasn't his career path.
Okay.
So in life, he was an activist, but in his career path, it wasn't that's what he was going to go
hobby
into.
of philanthropy.
Yes, I would say he was he was a theater major.
Okay.
Or drama major, whatever. So in the spring of 1964, he was
performing arts.
Yes.
I don't know which one's the technical term.
I think it said it was a theater major. But in the spring of 1964, his junior year in college, he attended a talk by civil rights activists from Mississippi, Aaron Henry, and the head of the state's NAACP he was the head of the state's NAACP branch, and Franny Lou Hammer. And they were recruiting students under the age of 21, so 21 and under, with the permission of their parents, who would participate in the Freedom Summer Project and help set up freedom schools, which were temporary alternative to public schools in the South, designed to help African Americans develop social, political, and economic equality.
But also a segregated school then if they're trying to help.
Yes.
But they're also adding to the problem then if it's segregated.
Well, sort of, I suppose, yes. I suppose they're kind of fighting fire with fire, maybe. But in June of 1964, Andrew left New York City to teach a core training session for Freedom Summer Volunteers in Ohio. And that's where he met Mickey Schwerner, and James Chaney. And the three of them trained hundreds of volunteers on how to deal with negative racism, which is negative no matter what. But anyway, so racism,
right,
and the violence that they would most definitely encounter.
Some of it probably comes worse than others, though. Some of it's probably more abusive.
Yeah, some of it's definitely more abusive.
Slurring.
So, and violence, because these are things that are definitely they're going to be encountering, right? When they're going to be pushing the civil rights agenda on people that don't want it.
Right.
You know, like obviously a lot of people did want it, but a lot of people didn't want it.
Yeah,
so,
the people who were cool to keep the Black people oppressed.
Yes. So in the Deep South, civil rights activists were resented and they were deemed suspicious by whites. And there were spies who were paid by the state of Mississippi sovereignty, I cannot say that word, commission, which
Sovereignty?
was Sovereignty Commission, which was a taxpayer funded agency that kept track of all Northerners and civil rights activists.
Northerners.
Yep. And then
they're basically glorified spies.
Yeah. Well, they weren't glorified. They were spies.
They just were spies.
They just were. And they were paid. They were paid spies by the fucking state.
They weren't volunteers. Let's be clear.
And it was the state that had this commission that employed these people.
That's fucked up.
To like keep tabs on people that they deemed to be dangerous.
Right. It's like deeming terroristic activity.
Basically. So the White Knights of the Ku Klux Klan.
Oh, God.
Here and known as the KKK. That's just what I'm going to call them. Because
they're
it's easier.
so fucked up.
Yeah. They're not good at all. They were a huge threat to the African American community who was trying to rise up, if you will, right?
Okay.
And they were vehemently opposed to desegregation and, in particular, voting rights for African Americans. Many people in the South just really liked the way things were. Segregation and Jim Crow laws and depriving people of their basic civil rights just seemed like it was cool. They just didn't think there was anything wrong with it. Like,
funny how that's still happening today.
To them, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
I guess.
Obviously very broke. KKK membership skyrocketed to over 10,000 in 1964 in Mississippi alone.
Damn.
The KKK used
you
violence.
Have to have a membership?
Yeah. Well, you have to get like sworn in. It's like a
cult?
Yes, that is a great. It's like, I was going to say it's like a community. It's like the Elks Club or something, but not.
No, it's a cult.
Yeah.
A, and B, you have to have a fucking membership to it?
Yeah.
Wow.
And
what are you scanning your membership card while you're in your fucking white hood? Because
I was going to say, and they were hooded and everything because they were still don't want to show their faces.
What the fuck? Yeah, if you can't even be proud enough not to show your face, then you shouldn't do it at all.
Right. That's
can't show your face.
But so KKK membership.
Proud people should have nothing to hide.
Exactly. The KKK used violence to fight the civil rights movement. On April 24th, 1964, they staged 61 simultaneous cross burnings throughout the state.
Jeez.
The KKK targeted civil rights meetings and meeting places during the Freedom Summer and burned down 20 Black Mississippi churches during that summer.
Jeez.
Yeah, crazy. The KKK focused their hate on, obviously, everybody. But
nobody's left out. We hate everyone here.
Equal opportunity hatred. But they really were hating on Mickey and Rita Schwerner because they were viewed as race traitors. And Mickey
they're white
was
and want to help black people.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's so
and Mickey
fucked.
was Jewish, so that was not cool by their standards. Also,
right.
on June 16th, 1964.
Come on, people. You should only either be racist or anti-Semitic. You can't be both.
Clearly, you can.
It's a joke.
I know. Well, no, so was mine. Clearly, you can. Overachievers.
We don't just hate one group. We hate them all.
Equal opportunity hatred right here.
Yeah, we drank our haterade bright and early this morning. Kept that shit in a pump flowing through our system.
Right. We got enough to go around for
Right, we
everybody.
got a drip for everyone happening around here.
On June 16th, 1964, a large group of KKK members held a meeting, and they thought that the white civil rights workers, so Mickey and Rita, they thought that they were at this church, the Mount Zion Baptist Church in Neshoba County. There we go, Neshoba County.
Neshoba.
The Klan first beat several members attending a meeting before returning later that night and burning the church down. It was thought that even though the civil rights workers weren't there, that the attack might lure them back to Neshoba County.
Okay.
So it was like bait, right? On that day, Mickey wasn't there because he was in Ohio with Andrew Goodman and James Chaney, and they were training the volunteers, right? They got back to Mississippi on June 20th, so 4 days later, and they heard about the church fire and the beatings.
Oh, it's going to be our good guys that die.
Yeah.
Oh, you said 3, and you just named off 3 people.
Mm-hmm. Well,
shit.
Gave you the backstory on 3 people, didn't I?
I know. I just didn't see them being... I thought that they were going to be our murderers. Not our good guys gone down.
No, they're the ones.
Of course.
They're the victims.
Why do the good guys get killed?
Because good guys don't typically kill people.
Right, but they could just get left alone without having to kill or be killed.
Well,
But I
right.
guess it's a dog-eat-dog world.
So much so. So Mickey, James, and Andrew decided that the next day, June 21st, that they were going to go and see the charred remains of the church, and they were going to visit with the parishioners / victims of the KKK. And, you know.
Right, they did a good job of luring them out of hiding.
Yes, exactly.
Even though they weren't really in hiding. They just weren't there.
Right. Yeah, they just thought they were there and they weren't. So on the drive back to Meridian, so they go to, it's in Philadelphia, Mississippi. So they're in Philadelphia visiting the church, visiting the victims. And on the drive back to Meridian, the blue station wagon that was known to local law enforcement as a core vehicle was stopped, and the sheriff's deputy arrested all 3 men. James, who was driving, was charged with speeding, and Andrew and Mickey were held for investigation.
Right, convenient. Keep them there.
Convenient. Neshoba County Sheriff's Deputy Cecil Price took them to the Philadelphia jail at about 4 p.m. on June 21st. And even though speeding fines were posted on the wall in the jail, Deputy Price told them that they would have to stay in jail until the Justice of the Peace arrived to process the fine.
Till the Justice of the Peace, our fellow KKK members.
Right. Till the Justice of the Peace comes and he can process the fine. And Mickey asked to make a phone call because, that's your right when you've been arrested that you get one phone call. And he was denied by Price. And then Price left the jail. And the 3 guys were there in the jail.
Of course. So now they're unsupervised.
When the men failed to return to Meridian, the Corps members started calling nearby jails and police stations to inquire about the men, which was their standard operating procedure, right? They're like, these guys are supposed to be back by such and such a time.
Because they knew they were targets, then obviously, right?
Well, I think all of the civil rights volunteers, activists, workers.
Everyone was a target.
They were targets. They were all targets.
Kept close tabs on each other.
Right. So standard operating procedure, good Lord, words.
Yeah, you can't.
I can't. Was that where are our people? We're going to start checking up on them. Like they haven't been gone for 24 hours. They literally were supposed to be back an hour ago and they're not. So what's up with that?
So
And, obviously pre-cell phone and all of that. So Deputy Price returned to the jail. Oh, wait, I lost my place. Okay. Minnie Herring, who was the jailer's wife, claimed that there was no phone call from Corps that day, even though Corps records show a call to the Philadelphia jail around 5:30 p.m. Deputy Price returned to the jail at about 10 p.m. and he collected a $20 fine from James for speeding, and he released all 3 men, and he took them back to their impounded car and told them that they better get out of the county. Like, just, you need to fucking go, right? And they were never seen alive again. In the early morning...
Were they found? Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
You said they're never seen alive again. I guess you didn't say they're never seen again.
They were never seen alive again. In the early morning of June 22nd, COFO...
I would just like to preface all of this with you were like, you probably know this. And I was like, I don't know that I know this. I was like, I know, like, obviously some principles around what was happening. I know some history of what was going down around this time, but I don't know what you're talking about. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I just... Because
You literally said it to me.
Well, no, I know, but I just, like, I knew about this case, but I didn't know so many details about it. Obviously, like always, it's like, oh, I know this case, but like as I'm doing it,
that's where you actually don't know shit.
Well, and that's where all like the history comes in, because it's like it's not just 1964. Like, this is fucking going back decades, century.
Right.
You know?
It didn't just start yesterday. The Jim Crow laws and trying to fight that were then eradicated and trying to fight for them for the South to truly oblige. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. In the early morning of June 22nd, COFO representatives called their department attorney. So the COFO's attorney, right, to report the men missing. And local law enforcement in Lauderdale and Neshoba counties both said that no men fitting the descriptions of Mickey, James, and Andrew were or had been detained. The the FBI office in New Orleans was notified.
That is the federal.
It is.
Federal Bureau of Investigation.
Yes. So the FBI office in New Orleans was notified about the missing men. So like shit is happening because
quickly.
Yeah, because it's a serious situation. Like, it's extremely volatile at this time in the South.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, people are riding buses and getting arrested and beaten up by mobs, and crosses are being burnt and churches are being burned down, and people are being...
We have some serious kindness issues going down.
Yes, yeah. There's
some serious lack of humanity taking place.
There's a huge upheaval, and it's a lot of bullshit drama and scariness. And people who are brave that go to fight it are the targets, unfortunately.
Of course.
Because, you know, again, they're outsiders and people are like, fuck you. You don't need to come to our county or our town and tell us how we've lived this way for our whole entire fucking lives. Like, who are you?
You don't need to come change things.
Yeah, you city boy coming down here and tell me how to be, you know, fuck you.
You Jewish city boy?
Yeah, Jewish or not, because it's all of these.
No, I know.
All of these northerners coming down. So the FBI office in New Orleans was notified.
I'm sure it was happening in the north too, though. I'm sure it wasn't just exclusive to the South that this shit was taking place.
No, it was just...
I think it was anywhere probably that they couldn't get on board with.
100%. The South was just...
more densely populated and not wanting to follow the rules.
Yeah, it was more densely populated in racism and hatred, at least outwardly, I guess.
Yeah,
because I'm sure it's happening everywhere, but like, you don't go to New York City and see a whites only drinking fountain.
Right.
You know, where you would see that in the South. So anyway, the FBI office in New Orleans was notified about the missing men, and they were asked to help with the investigation. A few hours after that, like, so very early in the morning, on the 22nd, Attorney General Robert Kennedy asked the FBI to take the lead of the case.
Robert Kennedy, like Kennedy's?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, he was the Attorney
Not
General.
Like brainworms, but just Kennedy?
Kennedy. Robert Kennedy. RFK Sr. So.
Not brainworms?
Because he was the Attorney General for the United States.
Okay.
1964. His brother was killed in 63. But he was the Attorney General at the time, and he had been appointed by his brother. But anyway, no nepotism. It's cool.
Yeah, we're not talking about a nepotism kid case today.
Right.
No case of childhood nepotism going down here. Kennedys weren't groomed to be famous politicians.
Not at all. We should do that case about Rose Kennedy, too, the daughter. Anyway.
The whole Kennedys, all of their everything is just bullshit surrounding the Kennedys. You know what I discovered? RFK Jr. is married to that actress that we love, Dallas.
Oh, yeah.
I found that out recently. I was like, oh, really?
Yeah.
That was her choice? You could have anyone in the world, and this is odd.
Interesting choice. Interesting life choice. RFK asked the FBI to take lead on the case, and by late morning, there were FBI agents in Meridian and Philadelphia conducting interviews. So this is, like I said, it's priority.
It's serious,
It's priority.
As it should be.
So this is now a federal missing persons case.
Good.
It's gone from like, where are they, to like, this is an FBI manhunt, right? Deputy Price was confronted by FBI agents on the 22nd. He admitted that he had arrested the men on June 21st. He's like, oh, shoot, wait. You said these guys, and I was like, oh, no, I hadn't seen them. And then I was like, oh, wait, I did arrest them.
Oh,
My bad.
I saw those guys.
Yeah, I did. But
Wait,
I arrested...
That was the description? I knew them.
My bad.
I left them alone for a little bit.
Right. Well, he said...
And I didn't give him a phone call.
He's like, well, yeah, I arrested him, but then I, like... took the fine and I let him go. And I told him, like, you just need to fucking go. And I didn't see them after that. So he said that he saw them driving
even left the impound lot
out of Philadelphia towards Meridian. And shockingly, Price became a prime suspect. And his whereabouts between 10:40 and 11:30 on June 21st could not be accounted for.
It's the crooked cops, isn't it?
On June 23rd.
Sorry.
That's okay. It's fact. On June 23rd, 1964, the burned station wagon registered to the COFO was found in a swamp. So at this point, the men were presumed to be dead and not missing. The FBI quickly moved massive resources and established a new Jackson field office, which coordinated the manhunt and the investigation called the MinBurn, Mississippi Burning Investigation.
Okay.
There were many challenges.
Burning in relation to all the different crosses that were burnt in the different churches and all that. That's why they're calling it the burn unit.
And the car. They found the car that was burned. So it's a theme.
Right. It's a theme of burning.
A theme of torching things, fire. Setting things on fire. So there were many challenges for the agents. Local law enforcement was deceitful. And people with relevant information didn't want to cooperate, of course, because either they were part of it or they were afraid. Either way. False leads were deliberately planted that wasted time and resources. So the FBI at this point realizes that it's on its own with no help from local or state law enforcement. So not just like Meridian and Lauderdale, but the whole fucking state of Mississippi is like, no, like, we don't know. Meh.
Huh?
6 days after their disappearance, a Knoxville, Mississippi reporter recorded an interview with a local Philadelphia man who remained anonymous, who claimed that Sheriff Rainey, and that's the sheriff, like the big main sheriff of Neshoba County, and others were bragging about the KKK killing the men, and that, of course, Deputy Price was involved. I was going to say,
what about Price?
Yep, he was involved, of course.
I feel like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say like, oh, it's always that cop. But I feel like anytime you hear about a crooked cop in some way, shape, or form involved in a case, it is always that cop.
Yeah.
It's not, it's not every time that something happens do you say, oh my God, it's a cop's involvement. But when something shady and weird goes down that is, not really
centered in law enforcement.
That's not really sticking to the books of, we need to actually book these guys. This is going down.
Or you're speeding. Pay your $20 fine and here's your ticket,
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like the just correct not chain of commands. That's not the right word that I'm looking for.
The standard operating procedure.
Yeah, it's not going down.
Following
and
the
therefore,
rules.
It's suspicious on the police's end.
Right. Yeah, because of course we respect and rely on the police. Like if you're getting robbed, you don't call a crackhead. You call the police.
Unless you feel like calling a crackhead. They might be a little bit more effective.
Depends. But, for the most part, they are there to serve and protect. And for the most part, I think they are serving and protecting. It's just the bad.
Oh, I would say that they're majority serving and protecting. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's the bad ones that just give them
the bad reputation. Yeah,
exactly. So
it's the bad ones that really sour the police taste in your mouth.
Yes. That's the thing. The FBI conducted about 1,000 interviews, and they utilized local confidential sources that were willing to turn on fellow KKK members.
Okay.
So they got like people that were part of the KKK that were already in it to like flip the script and like give the FBI information like on the DL because they trusted them. The KKK
They
people
had informants.
yeah.
Yes.
Because okay.
Police informants within the KKK. Yes.
Yeah. Well, federal informants, because the police, it's like, no. So they didn't share information with the local law enforcement, who were now claiming that the men had staged their own disappearance to attract attention to the cause.
Oh.
To the civil rights movement.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Yep. So throughout the month
they vanished into thin air, and they did it on purpose.
and they burnt their car so that they would draw attention
They'd have
to
to
it
flee
all.
on foot.
So it all happening, all going down just like that.
Make you never wanted to see Rita ever again.
Nope. Throughout the month of July, the FBI searched the woods, fields, swamps, and rivers of Mississippi, and they found the remains of 8 African-American men. 2 were ID'd as Henry D. and Charles Moore, who were college students who had been kidnapped, beaten, and murdered in May of 1964. So a couple months earlier in May. And another corpse that they uncovered that was wearing a Corps t-shirt, but that guy couldn't be identified. It was just that they knew he was black. He was wearing a Corps t-shirt.
John Doe.
And
That's
then
so sad. I hate when they're unidentified.
And there were 5 other victims that also, they just found them, but like there's no...
But there's no Andrew, Mickey, and what's the other guy's name?
Andrew, Mickey, and James.
Yeah,
Nope.
they're not here.
Nope, they're not there. So local county prosecutor...
So fucking sad.
The local county prosecutor unsuccessfully subpoenaed FBI agents to Neshoba County grand jury and expressed the intention to prosecute people who were cooperating with the federal authorities. But, of course, nothing ever came of that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because they're saying that it's staged and that the FBI is, like, wasting the time of all the people and the taxpayers. And, like, you know, they're basically accusing the FBI of being part of this ruse.
Yeah.
You know,
because that's what the FBI wants to waste their time doing. I'm pretty
right.
sure they were trying
And that
to,
anybody who's cooperating with the ruse.
solve Marilyn Monroe's death and solve what happened to JFK. And it's like they just have other bigger fish to fry.
Right.
Although they got JFK's dude real quick. But
perhaps
they did. Or if it's, I guess it depends if it was more than one sniper, but.
Conspiracy theory.
Conspiracy time. No,
So
just
on
kidding.
August 3rd, 1964, and I'm sorry, not laughing about this, but conspiracy time. Interjection. On August 3rd, 1964, an anonymous source said that he knew the bodies were buried in a dam, recently constructed dam, mind you, on a farm belonging to Olin Burridge in Neshoba County. The FBI showed up at the Old Jolly Farm outside Philadelphia on August 4th, 1964.
Did you make that up, or did something say that it was an old jolly farm?
That's the name of the farm, Old Jolly Farm.
Oh, so you didn't make that up.
No, that showed up at the Old Jolly Farm. That was the name of the guy's farm.
Was he
With
jolly?
a search warrant, I'm guessing not after this. With a search warrant, bodies of the 3 men were found later that day. Burge said that he had no knowledge of how they came to be buried on his land. And of course, no one working on the dam or any neighbors saw anything unusual on the night of June 21st.
They
But
find his white mask?
But the discovery of the bodies sent a clear message to the members of the KKK that someone with personal knowledge of the murders had told the FBI where to find the bodies.
So there was an informant. There's a snake
unraveling.
amongst them.
Yeah, there's unraveling. The FBI surveilled several members of the KKK who were also law enforcement, as we know. Right? Price, Rainey.
This reminds me, I'm sorry, I was just thinking that scene in Mean Girls where it's like, you did it and you told. You're a bitch. No, she's a bitch. You know, when the burn book gets scattered around. You're the only person who I told about that.
The only person.
Right? And it's all, you know, out in the open now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the thing. It's like you're part of a cult. The FBI surveilled several members of the KKK who were also law enforcement. In late November of 1964, the FBI formally accused 21 men of engineering a conspiracy to injure, oppress, threaten, and intimidate James, Mickey, and Andrew. On December 4th, 1964, that's your birthday,
That's my birthday, but that's a long time before I was born. I was not born in 1964, I tell you.
I wasn't even born in 1964.
I know, you're a youngin'.
Anyway, So December 4th, 1964, the FBI and the FBI also apprehended and detained 18 men. Prosecutors brought charges before a federal grand jury for conspiring to violate Chaney, Schwerner, and Goodman's civil rights. 18 men, sorry, because I'm not going to be able to say it.
Why didn't you say James, Mickey,
and Andrew?
Why'd you list off their last names? You just threw me for a fucking loop.
Sorry, because I just
like
want
I do to you every once in a while, and you go, who is that?
Because it was formal. So it was a formal charge, and in the formal charges, their last names were used. So I apologize. Okay. But I always like to call them by their first names because
makes it more personal.
Yeah, they're more personal. It's more personal.
Even though we didn't know them, but we care about them.
Yeah. After this, I feel like I do. Except for it's really sad because like I'm researching it, and there are like pictures of Andrew and there are pictures of Mickey, but there's literally one picture of James and that's it. Like no matter where you look, it's the same picture of him everywhere. That's on the FBI poster that they made when they were missing.
That's so sad.
I know, right?
That was like when I was doing White Avery, I couldn't fucking figure out who the victims, couldn't find any information out on them at all.
Right. Well, that's this guy.
She scared me.
Like he's a victim and there's nothing.
She's like, I know, I scared you.
Here I am. Aurora says, yeah, come on, do it, man. 18 men were indicted in January of 1965. In February of 1965, presiding Judge William Harold Cox dismissed the charges against the majority of the defendants, maintaining that the law applied only to law enforcement, Deputy Price, Sheriff Rainey, and a patrolman, which is weird that the judge would dismiss everything against the other people, but not against the law enforcement, given what I'm about to tell you. Okay. So
it's just random that they continue to target law enforcement.
It's just odd in this situation.
I feel like it's odd in general because regardless of whether you're law enforcement or you're Joe Schmo, you still committed a crime. The only difference is law enforcement should know better because they took an oath to not commit crime.
Right.
Yes, there's definitely ethics and right versus wrong for Joe Schmo also, but the police officers literally took an oath to be good people.
Right. Yeah, serve and protect, but just who you choose to serve and protect, I guess. So the prosecution appealed, and in 1966, the Supreme Court reinstated the charges, ruling that the law applied to law enforcement as well as civilians.
Okay.
In 1967, the men were once again indicted, and the trial began in October of 1967. Back again before Judge Cox, who was a known segregationist and who had been unsuccessfully impeached.
Right. So well, that's what I'm saying. They're taking this to trial in front of someone who's going to have an inherent bias.
Well, and that's why I'm saying it's weird that he's like, okay, all of you civilians can go, but these cops, I'm holding them accountable, right? So they go back in front of the same judge, right? He was a known segregationist, and he had been unsuccessfully impeached as a judge after describing African American witnesses in an earlier case as chimpanzees. Yeah.
Wow.
Wow is right. So,
jeez.
I'm going to say this though, but to his credit, on the first day of trial,
there's nothing to his credit.
No,
this guy
he is a POS. But to his credit, on the first day of trial, the defense asked a witness if Schwerner was part of a plot to rape white women during the summer of 1964. So the prosecution was victim blaming. Prosecution, the defense. The defense was victim blaming, trying to say, well, he deserved to die because he was part of a plot to rape white women. And,
wow.
Right. So Judge Cox called the question.
His name would be Cox.
So he called the question improper, saying, I'm not going to allow a farce to be made of this trial. So at least he did do that. But I also feel like it was self-interest. It was self-protecting because he'd already been kind of in the spotlight for the chimpanzee remark. And this...
Right, because he's getting close to being...
impeached.
Disbarred also?
Impeached. Disbarred as a lawyer, but impeached off the bench. And then the next... He would also probably be disbarred, yeah. But fuck, what was I going to say? But this is like a national case. And so even though they're in this part of the country where everything that these people are doing is believed in by 90% of the population down there, or even 80% of the population, right, believes the white population that what they're doing and all this stuff is fine. It's no big deal. But there's a national spotlight on it. And so I feel like, even though I say it's to his credit, I feel like it was self-preservation, but I could be wrong. Maybe he
self-serving. He's like, we don't need to bring rape into this.
Right. Yeah. Like no victim blaming.
Skipping straight to murder.
Yeah. Well, no victim blaming. No, because they were saying that Schwerner was the one trying to rape white women.
We're skipping to who murdered you.
Yeah,
we're skipping to getting justice for you, not damaging your reputation.
So the prosecution read the 1964 confessions of Horace Doyle Barnett and James Jordan.
Sorry, that's what I meant by victim blaming, is that they're like, oh, well, you were going to do this, therefore you deserve to die.
Yeah, no, that's exactly. I mean. And that's what the defense tried to do. Exactly, 100%. Like, let's call it like it is. He was going to
rape our women.
Yes.
Yeah, he deserves to die.
Right, he's a Jew and he was down here. He's going to rape our white women. He's equally as bad as any of these black people that we want to kill. So it's fine. It was justified. But yeah, no, that was all bullshit. So the confessions of Horace Doyle Barnett and James Jordan, which described what happened the night of June 21st, 1964. After leaving the three men at the jail, Price contacted Edgar Ray Killen, one of the leaders of the local KKK, who also just happened to be a Baptist minister.
Huh.
Yeah. Killen directed the KKK members to gather in Philadelphia that night. Then 2 cars full of Klansmen headed for the outskirts of town towards Meridian, and they just waited. And then Price went back to the jail and released the men and ordered them to head back to Meridian. And as they drove, they were pursued by 2 cars as well as Price. So 3 cars. They then forced them off the road, where there was an exchange, and, it was the whole, like, you're an inner lover and, like, all of this happening. And Schwerner was trained. He was like, sorry, Aurora. He was trained in how to, like, try to diffuse the situation. So he was, like, saying, I can understand why that would bother you. Like, this is the way that you've been raised, but, like, these people are human as well. And I'm just trying to educate people on, the balance of life and what's right and what's wrong.
Who the real enemy is. Yeah. Because it's not these guys. It's probably the Soviets at this current point in time, or
current
Vietnam,
moment.
Whatever.
So anyway.
Whatever the U.S. is choosing to wage war against at this point.
At this moment. So there was an exchange, and Schwerner is trying to, like, diffuse the situation. He's trying to talk the men down, clearly unsuccessfully. And the 3 of them were forced into Klansmen's cars, and they were taken down a side road. There, James Jordan shot James Chaney, and another man by the name of Wayne Roberts shot both Mickey and Andrew. And then they loaded the bodies back into the core station wagon, and they drove them to the farm, where they used the bulldozer that was on site building the dam to bury the bodies. Then they drove the station wagon to the swamp and they torched it. So the all white, by the way, jury, all white, because all the black jurors had been disqualified. Well, no, there were black jurors that were brought in, but they were all disqualified by the defense.
Because it's segregated.
Well, not because it
not
wasn't
because of the laws, but because that's what they chose to do.
No, it's because they could because you know how they have it. You probably never been part of a jury or never been to jury. Have you ever gotten called for jury duty?
Nope.
Well, they question people.
Not somewhat.
It's a coming. So they question you, and then the defense or the prosecution.
Do you get to know what the case is about first before they question you?
Yeah. But
okay, so I can answer right or wrong.
So you can, so the prosecution or the defense can disqualify a certain amount of jurors.
Okay.
And so the defense but did disqualify all the black jurors that were present. All the black jurors that were available. Those were all, they're like, nope, strike for whatever reason that they gave. Whether it was because they're black or just because they came up with some other reason, I don't know. But anyway, there were no black jurors. And I think it was 7 men and 5 women. And they were all like between the ages of like 35 and 65 or something.
Okay.
But they found 7 of the men guilty. One juror flat refused to convict a minister. So Killen walked, and the jury also failed to reach verdicts in the other cases. So of the 18 of them, there's originally 21, then it came down to 7, or it came down to 18, and then 7 of them get convicted, right? And so after exhausting...
7 of them get convicted or go to trial?
Get convicted.
Okay.
Get convicted. But by this time it's 1967, right? So after exhausting all of their appeals, the men started serving their sentences in March of 1970, and all of them were sentenced to between 3 and 10 years. And none of them...
Wow, 3 years for taking 3 lives.
And none of them would end up serving more than 6 years.
Jeez.
Yeah. In 1998... it was revealed that the Mississippi Sovereignty Commission gave the license plate number of the core station wagon driven by Mickey Schwerner to the KKK.
Wow.
So they knew, because as I said in the beginning, the KKK was specifically targeting him because he was like a threat.
Yeah, because they thought that he was turning on his own race.
He was a race traitor and he was Jewish. And so... yeah. Well, and yeah.
Double red flag?
Yeah. Well, I think...
not to me, to the KKK.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to just think how I want to put it, because if he's Jewish and they don't like him anyway, then they can't really consider him to be a race traitor, but maybe his wife, because she wasn't Jewish.
She wasn't?
I don't think so. Anyway, so it was revealed 1998. So this thing just keeps going and going, right?
Yeah,
more
but
things
you said it was 40 years.
Yeah, more things just keep coming out. In 2000, an Illinois teacher and 3 of his students produced a documentary for National History Day that brought new evidence to light, and it led to the conviction in 2005 of Edgar Ray Killen.
Good.
The minister.
Yep.
Who was like, he was a higher up. He was a higher up in the KKK. Like he swore people in, and he was like a known racist and segregationist, and he was just a straight up
piece of shit.
Yeah. So he was convicted in 2005.
He must have been an old man, though.
Yeah.
Not that matters. That's
like many of them.
I was going to say, what's his name? The Golden State Killer. Joseph DeAngelo.
Joseph DeAngelo, or that priest that killed that girl, Irene Garza. But anyway, so he was convicted of 3 counts of manslaughter, and he was sentenced to 60 years in prison. And this is in 2005, and this happened in 1964. And he died in prison in 2018 at the age of 92. And I read somewhere, but then I couldn't find it again because I have 87 tabs open, going back and forth, cross-referencing information. And plus there were so many defendants, and there were so many people involved, and there was so much to the court process. But really, I just want to focus on the actual punishment and the actual bullshit.
6 years.
The actual bullshit. But anyway, so I read somewhere that Price gave information in 2000 regarding Killen, because so Price only served 6 years, right? That's the deputy.
Yeah.
And then when he got out, he just lived a normal life. He wasn't a cop anymore, obviously. And then
I don't know if that's that obvious, but good. I'm glad that he was no longer a police officer.
But he stayed in Meridian.
Okay.
And he I guess had a change of heart, and he watched Roots, which is,
I know what Roots is.
Okay, thank you. But anyway, so he watched Roots, and at that point he had a change of heart about how he felt about Black people.
Because we all bleed red.
He had a come to Jesus or an epiphany or whatever you want to call it.
So and he gave up Kilmer.
So yeah, so he somehow he gave up information regarding Killen that led to his arrest and his conviction.
Killowins, anyone?
And it was rumored that when Price fell from a piece of an equipment that he worked at this rental store, that it wasn't really an accident. And he was 63 years old, and he fell from this lift, and he lived for 3 days, and then he died.
It's like a gang once you never actually can leave.
Yeah. Well, and he's giving up this minister and yada yada.
Right.
So
he
he
was
was
higher up. So you really can't leave. We'll kill you instead.
Yeah. At this time, well, plus they also, I think, thought that he would just stay.
Loyal.
Yeah, loyal. Exactly. I was going to say faithful, but I'm like, that's not really the word. Loyal is the word. So he was 63 years old. And there were rumors also at this time that the Attorney General of Mississippi was considering bringing murder charges against some of the surviving defendants. And Price would have been their best witness. And of course, his death kind of put an end to that.
Right. He couldn't do anything further once he's dead because they wanted to take him out. So he couldn't do anything further.
Yep.
Because they probably heard circulation if something was going to go down.
Well, because like I said, in 2000, he gave information that led to the arrest and conviction of Killen. And they were like, okay, well, we got him. So what else can we get from Price that can give us whoever else is still alive that was involved in this? Because you shouldn't get to live your whole life getting away with something like this.
That makes sense.
Yep. So that was the end of that. That was the end of the...
What happened to the dude who they were on his property? The Jolly Rancher farm?
Nothing happened because he didn't know.
He was let go. He really didn't know.
He said he didn't know, and I don't know if he was
part... They didn't ever find a cloak.
I don't know if he was part of the 18 that they indicted because I started kind of going through all those names and stuff, and then I was like... If I'm going to list fucking 18 people that are indicted for this and 21 people that were under suspicion in a whole fucking town that did nothing and turned their back and nobody saw anything, this case is going to take 4.5 months to do.
Right.
So I don't know. I could look that up and I could get back to you if you want me to on the next episode.
Yeah,
just give you an update.
Neither one of us will.
But anyway,
nothing came of him at that current point in time.
Nothing came at that current point in time. I don't think that he was one of the 7. Let's just say that. And as the case, like, as all the court testimony and all that's happening, like, people that originally have said stuff are like flipping their stories and like, oh, well, no, I was wrong about this. And oh, wait, just kidding. Because
to serve justice or to serve their
own agenda,
bigoted narratives,
bigoted narratives because they're scared.
Okay.
So people were like, oh, fuck, like I'm in open court now. Like, oops, no, I never said that. Or no, I didn't.
The informants.
That's not really what happened.
That makes sense.
So yeah, that's it. That's it on the court case. In 2014, President Obama posthumously, can't ever say that word either, like rural.
What is it?
After you're dead. Posthumously.
Where is it?
Right here. Posthumously.
Posthumously, I think.
Awarded.
That looks right to me. I've never heard of that word. What's the definition?
That's something that you get recognized for after you're dead.
Oh, so like if you win like a Nobel Prize after you're dead. It would be a
prize?
A Nobel Peace Prize.
Oh, Nobel Peace Prize. I thought you said an Adobo Prize. I'm like,
no, I said Nobel Prize and then I forgot to add the peace.
Okay.
But if you win like a Nobel Peace Prize, like after you're dead, that would be a posthumously award.
Yes. So in 2014, President Obama posthumously awarded Mickey Schwerner, James Chaney, and Andrew Goodman with the presidential.
I bet the South was pissed.
What?
I said, I bet the South was pissed.
I don't know. By then it's 2014, but
I don't know. Those roots run deep if you're in that community. It's if you're part of the KKK.
So he awarded them with the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Okay.
And it was like a big ceremony and a big to-do and like.
That's cool.
So that's it. That's all I have.
Thank you.
It just,
it was good, but it was really sad.
I know. That's why I said, I'm like, well.
But I liked the history lessons. Thank you.
I can't help myself sometimes.
Oh, no, I like it a lot.
Because I don't want to be like, okay, in 1964, this happened. But it's like, well, this is why this happened in 1964.
Right.
This is what led up to it.
Right. Giving you the building blocks.
The building blocks. That's a great, great thing to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, I really liked it. Thank you. Well, I didn't really like it, but like I liked it. If that makes sense. Like, thanks for bringing the story to me, but also like, why do people have to suck?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I thought it was a really interesting case. Like I said, I always was like, oh yeah, the Mississippi civil rights murders. These 3 guys got killed. The end.
Right.
And I didn't No. Like and I do somewhere in my brain know about all of the racism and all of the KKK. And
Yeah, you lived in the South when it was still Eli.
Robert E. Lee.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, my birthday is on January 19th, which mostly is celebrated as Martin Luther King Day. But when I was a kid growing up in South Carolina, I got my birthday off of school because it was Robert E. Lee Day, because it was Robert E. Lee's birthday.
Right, but now it's pretty recognized as Martin Luther King Day.
Yes. But, and you know, I'm a kid and I come back up here to Colorado where I was born, but my mom is a gypsy and we moved all the freaking
Don't get
time.
into that.
Anyway, but so I didn't know, like when I was like, Robert E. Lee Day? And people were like, what?
Who?
Well, not who, what, but like, no, I just got my birthday off school and that was my
So cool.
association. But yeah, Martin Luther King Day instead. We'll have that better.
Yeah, that's a better holiday for sure.
Yep.
Well, thank you for this. We should do more cases like this. I like it.
Well, we'll see if more than 6 people listen.
Right, if we get any traction on it, actually.
Yeah.
But even just for us, I like it.
Was it so long?
Yeah, it's an hour and a half almost.
Oh, that's not as long as I thought it was going to be.
Well, I think it's because I try not to interject as much because you were like, oh my God, it's going to be 800 pages in length.
It's 13 pages. I normally have like 8 and it's an hour and 15 minutes. Because like I said, 2-parter.
I was just trying to let you speak.
Very much could have been a 2-parter because I could have kept going and going and going with the trial and the people who were guilty and presumed guilty and all that. But
yeah, we don't give a fuck about them. We just want them to get their fucking selves shoved full of dildos while they're in hell.
Yes, that's what we want. And we don't need to have this part 2 to say that.
Nope. Or we could make a whole part 2 saying that. Get fucked with a dildo in hell. Yeah. I hope it so hot it cauterizes your butthole while it's doing it.
Thank you, American Horror Story. Was his name actually Drildo or was that our coming up with?
I think that was just us. I don't know. I've heard people say a drill bit dildo. I just always called it the dildo.
Yeah. Same. I'm like, wow, Drildo in the latex suit.
Yeah, from Hotel.
Yeah.
Yeah. The addiction demon or the addiction monster, whatever they called him.
Whatever he was.
Yeah, I don't know how you would be addicted to that, though. How you'd be addicted to that nightmare. I'm just not sure.
Well, you're going to have to face it. You're addicted to love.
Yeah. Addicted to the dildo. All right, you can follow us on Instagram at That's Disturbing Podcast, where you should, give us a like, give us a follow, message us if you feel so inclined. Definitely comment. Thanks, Lins321. You're always commenting on everything and makes me feel special.
Much appreciated.
I know, and she hearts my stories too, on my own account, and I'm like, I heart her back, and I'm like, you and your family are so cute.
Yeah, they are. Very cute. Very cute.
I love it. And she posts funny memes.
Yes. And very deep thought-provoking. Yeah. Other stuff.
Yeah.
She has lots of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, she's great.
3-2-1.
You're great. Yeah, no, she's amazing. But everyone else should be on her level.
Challenge accepted. Come on, people. Or challenge proposed.
Challenge proposed. I don't know if anyone's going to accept it.
Probably not.
They're going to be unfollow.
Right? You guys are so annoying.
Right.
Comment this.
Comment, you're annoying.
Yeah.
And you can send us a case request form. That's disturbingpodcast@gmail.com. And really, that's all I got for you, Mom. Any finishing thoughts? You should also subscribe, do all the things on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, or Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening to us, Google Podcasts. I think we're on Audible.
We are.
Or no, not Audible, Amazon Music. That's where we are.
I think we're on Audible, too.
Oh, are we? That's pretty sick.
Yeah,
I love Audible.
We're on
Audible should sponsor us, but they haven't yet. So I'm not going to tell you what my favorite audiobook is from there.
Cool, thanks, peace. And I mean that, especially after this case.
Okay, bye-bye.